My aunt died and left her entire estate to me instead of her own kids, and now I'm finding out she may have had a very good reason. So I don't even know where to start with this. I've been sitting on it for about 3 weeks trying to decide if I even want to post, because my family reads Reddit sometimes and honestly at this point I almost don't care anymore. I, 55F, am the sole beneficiary of my Aunt Rosalind's estate, which came out to roughly $340,000 in cash, her condo in Scottsdale, and about $80,000 in jewelry and furniture. She had 2 adult children of her own, my cousins Denny, 58M, and Patrice, 52F, and she left them each exactly $1. That's not a typo. $1 each. The rest came to me. Rosalind was my mother's older sister. My mom died in 2019 and after that Rosalind and I got really close. We talked on the phone almost every Sunday. I flew out to Scottsdale twice a year to see her. We watched the same trashy reality shows and texted each other during them. She was sharp as a tack until almost the end. She had ovarian cancer and it moved fast, diagnosed in February, gone by late July. She updated her will in April, about 6 weeks after her diagnosis, and her attorney has confirmed to me that she was of sound mind and had actually been planning this change for longer than I knew. I did not know I was in the will at all. I genuinely thought I was getting maybe a piece of jewelry or something sentimental. When her attorney called me I actually laughed because I thought it was some kind of mistake. It is not a mistake. Denny and Patrice have already hired an attorney and are contesting the will on the grounds of undue influence, meaning they're arguing that I manipulated a dying woman into cutting out her own children. Which is not what happened. But also, and here's where it gets complicated, I'm starting to find out things about Denny and Patrice that make me understand why Rosalind did what she did, and some of it is genuinely disturbing. Let me back up. I knew Denny and Patrice growing up but we were never close. Denny is 3 years older than me, Patrice is 3 years younger. We saw each other at holidays, the occasional summer visit. Nothing bad, nothing warm. Just cousins who existed in the same family. When I got closer to Rosalind after my mom died, I noticed she almost never mentioned them. I asked her once, maybe in 2021, how Patrice was doing, and she just said Patrice is Patrice and changed the subject. I didn't push it. I figured there was some family drama I didn't know about and it wasn't my business. When Rosalind got sick and I came out to Scottsdale, Denny and Patrice both showed up within about 2 weeks of each other. I was there first. And the vibe was, I don't have a better word for it, transactional. Denny kept asking about the condo. Not in a mom, what do you want to do with your things way, but in a so what's the plan for the condo way, right in front of her. Rosalind would just look at him and not answer. One time he asked about her investment accounts and she said, very calmly, Dennis, I'm not dead yet. He laughed like it was a joke. I don't think it was a joke. Patrice was different but not better. She cried a lot, which you'd expect, but she also kept pulling me aside to ask whether I knew who Rosalind's attorney was, and whether I thought there was a trust or just a will. I told her I had no idea, which was true. She also made a comment that stuck with me. She said Rosalind always did like you better, even when we were kids. It was always the 3 sisters, and then us. The 3 sisters meaning Rosalind, my mom, and their younger sister Claudette. I didn't know what to say to that so I just said something like I'm sure she loves you, Patrice, and walked away. Rosalind died on a Thursday morning. I was there. Denny and Patrice were not, they'd both gone back to their respective homes. Denny's in Portland, Patrice's in Nashville, about a week before. I called them both immediately. Denny's response was okay, let me know about the service. Patrice cried and asked if Rosalind had said anything at the end. She hadn't, really. She'd been mostly unconscious for the last day and a half. The will was distributed, the attorney just sent us all the documents, about 10 days after the funeral. I got the call first. Then Denny and Patrice got their letters with the $1 bequests. Denny called me within an hour. I could hear that he was trying very hard to stay controlled and failing. He said, I need you to explain to me what you did. I said I didn't do anything. He said, people don't cut out their own children for no reason. You were in her ear for 4 years. I said Rosalind made her own decisions. He said, she was sick and you were there and she was vulnerable and you took advantage of that. I said I was going to hang up now and he said you'll be hearing from my attorney and I said okay and hung up. Patrice didn't call. She texted. It was a long text and I only read about half of it because it was clear within the first few sentences that it was going to be abusive and I didn't need that. The parts I read called me a vulture, said my mother would be ashamed of me, said that Rosalind was not in her right mind at the end and that Patrice would make sure everyone knows what kind of person I am. Here's the thing that's making this complicated. About a week after all this started, I got a package in the mail. It was from Rosalind's attorney, not the will documents. This was a separate envelope that Rosalind had apparently left instructions to send to me after the estate documents were distributed. Inside was a letter in Rosalind's handwriting. 4 pages long. I've read it probably 20 times. I'm not going to share the whole thing because some of it feels too private, but the broad strokes are this: Rosalind knew exactly what she was doing. She was not manipulated. She was not confused. She laid out, in her own words, in her very precise and slightly sarcastic voice that I would recognize anywhere, exactly why she made the choices she did. The reasons involve things that happened between her and Denny and Patrice that I had no idea about. Financial things. A period of time around 2015 to 2016 that she describes as the years I understood who my children actually were. She doesn't go into every detail. She references what happened with the business and what Patrice did with the Flagstaff property and the situation with Denny's wife, none of which I know anything about. She writes that she didn't tell me these things while she was alive because she didn't want to put me in the middle, but that she wanted me to know, if the contents of the will ever became a legal issue, that her decisions were deliberate and informed and made with love. The letter ends with her saying that I was the person who showed up. Not just when she was sick. For years. And that she wanted the things she'd spent her life building to go to someone who would value them and not just extract them. I've talked to my own attorney about the letter and she says it could be very helpful in the contest proceedings because it establishes intent in Rosalind's own words. But here's what I keep thinking about. What happened in 2015 to 2016? What did Patrice do with some property in Flagstaff? Because I've been doing some light Googling and I found a property record for a parcel in Flagstaff, Arizona that was transferred out of Rosalind's name in 2016 for what looks like significantly below market value, and the name on the receiving end of that transfer is a Patrice adjacent LLC that I'm pretty sure Patrice is connected to. And now I'm wondering if what I thought was a story about a grieving family fighting over money is actually something else entirely. I have a meeting with my attorney on Thursday. I'm going to bring everything I've found. I don't know what I'm walking into. Edit, for everyone asking if I'm going to keep the inheritance, yes. I'm not giving it up. Rosalind wanted me to have it. That part isn't complicated for me. The rest of it is. Update 1. Okay, so Thursday happened and I have a lot to say. First, my attorney's name is Gwen and she might be the most unflappable human being I've ever met. I came in with a folder of printed property records, screenshots, the letter from Rosalind, and what I can only describe as 3 weeks of barely contained anxiety, and she looked at all of it very calmly and said, "Okay, good, this is useful." So the Flagstaff property thing. Gwen looked at the records I brought and agreed that the transfer price was significantly below assessed value. We're talking a parcel assessed at around $180,000 that transferred for $47,000. The LLC name is something like Sonoran Crest Properties and Gwen is going to dig into the registered agent and ownership structure. She said it's not uncommon for family members to do below market transfers for legitimate reasons, like a gift or a family arrangement, but that the LLC structure is a little unusual for that explanation. What she said next is the part I've been sitting with. She said, if Rosalind transferred the property under circumstances that were less than fully voluntary, that actually strengthens your position significantly. Because it suggests a pattern where her children were extracting value from her, which is directly contrary to the narrative they're trying to build about you. I said, what do you mean less than fully voluntary? She said, I mean anything from pressure and manipulation to something more legally serious. We don't know yet. But I want you to be prepared that this could get complicated in ways that go beyond a will contest. I drove home from that meeting and sat in my car in my own driveway for about 20 minutes. Here's the thing I hadn't told you yet, the thing I was holding back because I wasn't sure how to say it. When I went back and reread Rosalind's letter after the first post, really carefully, there's a line I glossed over the first few times. She writes, I want you to know that what I'm giving you is clean. I earned it and it belongs to me and no one else has any claim to it, whatever they may have told themselves. I didn't fully understand what that meant when I first read it. I think I'm starting to understand it now. I called Rosalind's friend Marguerite, who I've met twice and who was close with Rosalind for about 30 years. I didn't really know who else to call who might know things. I just said I was trying to understand some family history and asked if she had time to talk. She was quiet for a second and then she said, I wondered when someone was going to call me. We talked for almost 2 hours. I'm not going to put everything Marguerite told me in this post because some of it is still sinking in and some of it I want to verify before I say it out loud on the internet. But here is the broad shape of it. In 2015, Rosalind had a health scare, not cancer, something cardiac. She had a procedure and there was a period of a few weeks where things were uncertain. During that period, Denny came to Scottsdale. He had Rosalind sign some documents while she was, in Marguerite's words, not herself. Marguerite doesn't know exactly what the documents were. But she knows that shortly after that visit, Rosalind's financial advisor, a man she'd had for 15 years, abruptly stopped working with her, and Rosalind was very upset about it and wouldn't fully explain why. And then in 2016, the Flagstaff property transferred. And then Rosalind updated her will for the first time. Marguerite said, she never told me everything. You know how she was. But I know she felt like she'd been, the word she used was harvested. She said they came in when she was weak and they harvested what they could get. I had to put the phone down for a second when Marguerite said that. Because that is such a Rosalind word. Harvested. And the fact that she used it to Marguerite years before she wrote it to me in different words, the years I understood who my children actually were, it lands differently now. Denny's attorney sent a formal letter to Gwen this week requesting a full accounting of all contact I had with Rosalind in the 2 years before her death. Phone records, visit dates, any financial transactions between us. Gwen says this is standard for a contest claim, but to please not contact Denny or Patrice directly, which is not a problem because I have no desire to talk to either of them. Patrice has been quiet since the text she sent me right after the will was distributed. Which somehow feels worse than the yelling. I have a call with Gwen next Wednesday. She's going to have more information about the LLC by then. I keep looking at the condo listing photos. Rosalind's realtor sent them to me because we're figuring out what to do with it, and there's a picture of her kitchen with her little ceramic rooster collection on the shelf, and I miss her. I miss her so much, and instead of grieving I'm in the middle of whatever this is. And I'm angry about that. I'm really angry about that. Update 2. It's been about 2.5 weeks since my last update, and things have moved fast in some ways and completely stalled in others. The LLC thing. Gwen got the ownership information. Sonoran Crest Properties LLC is registered in Arizona, and the registered agent is a man I'll call T, who is or was Patrice's business partner in a real estate venture they ran together in the early 2010s. Patrice is not listed as an owner. But Gwen says that means approximately nothing, because the actual ownership structure can be obscured through a management company, and the question of who benefited financially from that property transfer is something that would require more digging. She also found something else. There was a second property. A small rental unit in Tempe that Rosalind owned. That one transferred in 2017, also below market, also to an LLC, a different LLC, but Gwen thinks potentially the same network of people. When Gwen told me this, I said, so she lost 2 properties. Gwen said, potentially, yes. And possibly other assets we haven't found yet. I said, can that be prosecuted? Is that elder financial abuse? Gwen said, it can be, depending on the circumstances. But Rosalind is gone, and proving what was voluntary versus what wasn't is very difficult after the fact. What I can tell you is that this information is relevant to the will contest, because it establishes a documented history of financial behavior toward Rosalind that is consistent with exploitation, not with the picture of loving children who were unfairly cut out. I've been going back through my memory of all those Sunday phone calls, trying to figure out if there were signs I missed. Things she said that I didn't understand at the time. There are a few. In maybe 2022, she said something offhand about how she was glad she'd gotten her house in order, and I thought she just meant that literally, organized, practical. She was always practical. In early 2023, we were talking about some reality show drama, someone getting betrayed by a family member, and she said, blood doesn't mean loyalty, it just means proximity. I remember thinking that was a sad thing to say, and then the show came back from commercial and we moved on. She knew. She'd known for years what she wanted to do. She just never told me directly because she didn't want me to feel obligated or burdened with it. That's so her. That is so completely her. The other thing, I heard from my cousin on my dad's side, totally separate branch of the family, no stake in any of this, who told me that Denny has apparently been telling people at the extended family level that I basically moved in with a dying woman and befriended her out of her estate. That's the version of events circulating now. I have not moved to Scottsdale. I do not live there. I visited twice a year and called every Sunday. The idea that I engineered a years-long friendship with my aunt in order to inherit her money is, I can't fully articulate how wrong that is. But I also know how it looks from the outside. Woman with no kids of her own leaves everything to a niece instead of her children. I get that it looks strange. What I keep wanting to say to people, and can't, because Gwen has told me to keep quiet publicly, is, ask why. Don't ask why she left it to me. Ask why she didn't leave it to them. Those are different questions, and the second one has a real answer. Patrice sent me a certified letter last week through her attorney, a formal demand that I not sell, transfer, or encumber any assets from the estate while the contest is pending. Gwen says that's expected and we're in compliance. She also says the fact that Patrice lawyered up separately from Denny is interesting, usually siblings in a joint contest coordinate. She thinks they may have slightly different legal strategies, which could mean they have slightly different things to hide. I went to Scottsdale last weekend to start going through the condo. Just me. I didn't take anything yet, I just needed to be in the space. Rosalind's reading glasses were still on her nightstand. There was a library book on her coffee table, 3 weeks overdue. Her coffee mug was in the drying rack. I sat on her couch for a long time and talked to her a little. Out loud. I know that's whatever it is, I don't care. I told her I was trying to do right by everything she gave me. I told her I was a little pissed at her for not telling me more while she was alive, even though I understand why she didn't. Her ceramic roosters are still on the shelf. I'm keeping those no matter what. Update 3. I wasn't going to post again until something more concrete happened, but I need to put this somewhere. Denny called my daughter. My daughter Simone is 28, lives in Denver, and has nothing to do with any of this. She and Rosalind were friendly but not close. Simone came with me to Scottsdale once, maybe 4 years ago, and Rosalind liked her. That's the extent of it. Denny got her number somehow, probably through some other family member. My family is bad about this, and called her and told her that what her mother is doing is going to tear the family apart and that Simone should talk some sense into her. Simone called me immediately after and said, "Mom, what the actual hell?" I told her everything. I'd been keeping her partially updated, but I hadn't given her the full picture because I was trying to protect her from the stress of it. After Denny's call, I figured she deserved the whole story. Simone was quiet for a long time after I finished, and then she said, "So Aunt Rosalind knew they'd come after you?" I said, "Yeah, I think she did." Simone said, "And she left it to you anyway because she wanted you protected and she wanted it to go somewhere real." I said, "Yeah." Simone said, "Okay. Then you fight it. Don't you dare roll over on this." I've been crying on and off since that conversation, and not in a bad way. Update 4. The development I couldn't fit into the last post, because I needed to sit with it first. Rosalind's former financial advisor, the one who abruptly stopped working with her in 2015, his name is Robert. He's retired now and lives in Tucson. Gwen tracked him down, and he agreed to talk. I don't have the full details yet because Gwen spoke to him and is still evaluating what he's willing to say and in what form. But here is what she told me. Robert left because he became uncomfortable with instructions he was receiving regarding Rosalind's accounts. The instructions were not coming from Rosalind. He won't say more than that on the phone, but he is willing to provide a written statement. Gwen said, if he'll put in writing what he told me verbally, we're in a very strong position. I asked her what he told her verbally. She said, that he was contacted by Rosalind's son asking him to make certain changes to account beneficiary designations, and that when he raised it with Rosalind directly, she had no knowledge of the request. Denny tried to change her beneficiary designations without her knowledge. In 2015. While she was recovering from a cardiac procedure. I don't know what to do with that as a human being who is trying to understand her aunt's life, what was happening while I was just calling her on Sundays and watching reality TV with her. She never told me. She rebuilt her walls and protected herself and updated her will and kept living. Kept being funny and sharp and interested in the world. Kept collecting ceramic roosters and reading library books and drinking her coffee from that same mug. She didn't let them make her into a victim. Even though they had treated her like one. The probate proceedings are going to take months. Gwen says probably another 6 to 8 months before anything is final. I'm still in the middle of all of it. But I feel like I understand what I'm in the middle of now, which is different from where I was 3 months ago. Whatever Rosalind wanted me to do with what she gave me, I don't think it was to hand it back to the people who tried to take it from her while she was alive. I'm not going to do that.